ICPC interrogates CBN officials and others over $3.4 billion COVID-19 loan. Falana urges federal government to review fuel subsidy removal and the Kia modernized plan to move firefighting equipment to Lagos. And the foreign scene, Nikki Haley beat Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. for first primary victory. Details now. Thank you for staying with us. The world news at 12 begins with the Nigeria Labour Congress NLC insisting yesterday that the only thing that would stop the planned nationwide strike over the hardship in the country is the federal government honoring of the agreement it had with Labour. This was contained in the latest letter written to the government, where the NLC dismissed claims that if the federal government had fulfilled about 80% of the October 2, 2023 agreement with organized labor. The NLC, in the letter dated February 29, 2024, asked the government to come out clean on any part of the agreement it fully fulfilled, warning that resorting to propaganda and disinformation was heightening restiveness amongst the citizens. In the letter addressed to the Minister of State for Labour and Employment, NLC's Acting General Secretary Ismail Bello advised the government to, between now and March 13, 2024 deadline, fast-track the process of implementation of the agreement to avoid a looming industrial crisis. Meanwhile, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, has questioned two officials of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, and one from the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation over a $3.4 billion loan allegedly granted to Nigeria by the International Monetary Fund, IMF. They were interrogated last week by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission. The anti-graft agency has also invited another set of officials from the Federal Ministry of Finance for interrogation. The Commission has also retrieved vital documents on the loan, which was meant to finance the budget and manage COVID-19. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, had recently approached the court over what it alleged as the failure to probe the grim allegations that the $3.4 billion was missing. A source told the nation that the probe of the loan was already in progress. It said the Commission began the probe after it had reviewed the reports of the Auditor General of the Federation, and investigators are trying to establish if the cash was missing, diverted, or unaccounted for. SERAP yesterday said it had filed a lawsuit against President Bola Tinubu for failing to probe the $3.4 billion loan that was either missing, diverted, or unaccounted for. It said the lawsuit was in line with Section 16, subsection 1 and 2 of the 1999 Constitution. Human rights lawyer Femi Falana, senior advocate of Nigeria, has urged the federal government to review the fuel subsidy removal policy owing to claims that Nigeria is still paying for it. President Bola Tinubu had, on his inauguration, declared an end to the subsidy era, triggering a hike in petroleum prices across the country. But in recent times, the World Bank claimed that the federal government is still paying subsidy for the product. Citing these claims, Falana called on the government to respond to them and review the policy in a statement on Sunday. The Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, has refuted the claim that the ministry is planning to move a firefighting simulator out of the Nigerian College of Technology, Zaria, to Lagos State. In a statement by his Special Advisor on Media and Communications, Tunde Moshood, today, the minister described the claim as the handiwork of mischief makers. The alleged move was met with mixed reactions at the Northern Elders Forum. In a statement by its Director of Publicity and Advocacy, Abdulaziz Suleiman, warned against it and described the development as worrisome. Meanwhile, the Minister of Works, Dave Umahi, says residents of South-East will not join their counterparts in other regions to protest against the high cost of living in Nigeria. Umahi made the assertion at the weekend while addressing journalists at his Uburu residence in Ohazara local government area of Ebonyi State. According to the former governor of the state, President Bola Tinubu has solved the major problem of the region, which he said was the incessant clash between farmers and the herders. The minister claimed that the region's present predicaments are self-inflicting, stressing that the activities of the unknown, what he called the unknown but known gunmen, are now the major challenges of the Southeast. You are currently listening to the World News at 12 right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. In a little while, we'll have Mr. Ake Fatunke, accountant and public and national affairs analyst, joining us to discuss issues in the news this afternoon. Welcome to the World News at 12, Mr. Fatunke. It's always a pleasure to have you here.
Great pleasure, Chairman. And good afternoon, Nigerians.
Good afternoon to you as well, and of course to those listening to us or watching us on YouTube from the diaspora. Let's begin with the NLC and this, what is beginning to look like the incessant back and forth with the federal government. Right? Did you know that when the NLC suspended its protest last week that was slated for Tuesday and Wednesday, February 27 and 28, NLC President Joe Ajaero came out to say that the first day recorded great success and it was peaceful, and they were not sure that would be replicated the next day, as they had suffered some intimidation and threats of violence, right? And also last week, the Minister of State for Labour and Employment, that's Nkiruka Onyejocha, came out to say that NLC really should not be hitting the street in a protest, as the federal government had fulfilled about 80% of what was contained in the 15-point memorandum of understanding, right? We also know that in an address, while commissioning the Red Rail Line project last week, President Bola Tinubu said, made assertions that Labour was being partisan, and that if they want to be involved in the elections, if they want to contest, they should wait to 2027 elections. It's just 9 months of the administration. They should not be protesting the way they are. But now the NLC is saying it will not back down. The only thing that will make it back down is if the government agrees to the implementation of everything contained in that 15-point memorandum of understanding and the new 17-point demand that was made by Labour to the federal government. Now, when the federal government says we fulfilled 80% of what was contained in that MOU, Ajaero is saying that this suggests, right, that the government is trying to raise worries amongst members of the NLC, saying that were this fulfilled and they were not informed or they were not privy to the information. He says upon careful examination of the 15 points outlined in the October 2, 2023 agreement, most of them have not been fully met, saying the ones that were supposedly addressed, that were supposedly implemented, have been breached. He's saying, look at the 35,000 naira wage award, for example. After payment in November last year, the next payment was just in January. That was like January ending to February. Is Labour towing the right path in this instance by refusing to back down in light of the recent statements made by the president?
Thank you again, Chair. No two sides can ever win an argument. If you see it white and I see it black, we'll just continue to go to and fro. But in between is a statement of truth. Truth can be a semblance towards the right or a semblance towards the left. But at the end of the day, you come out clean. Somebody, somewhere, is not being truthful in this way. And I will personally call on the federal government to come out a bit much more clean into accusations and counter accusations. A lot of the things we say on social media, it is come out clean and clear as to, if you say that you have resolved substantially, or even if it's just one or two, is the memorandum of understanding and agreement that was reached with Labour. How? To what extent? what is the hindrance? If the hindrance, for instance, is lack of capacity to stay on your promise, it's only fair that you should come out and say so and give reasons why. And those reasons will naturally involve you coming out and stating some of the things perhaps you have swallowed that you should not swallow. Things that should be exemplary that have not been shown exemplary. In other words, the whole of this so and fro is lack of trust and lack of capacity.
That's between the NLC and the federal government.
Between the people of Nigeria generally, of which NLC is leading a voice, and then there are so many other voices. Truth of the matter is, which must be sacrosanct in the minds of everybody, that Labour must also understand the fact that if we are on all fours, when I say we are on all fours, I'm talking of countrywide, an additional strike might be things that might be taken out of proportion. We are beginning to see signs that if these things are taken out of proportion, then you are calling for the end of the corporate entity that we call Nigeria. So, can we balance the terror? Federal government show more exemplary attitude, and I have seen one. I have to say that the fact that continuing looking at the center might be a misplaced judgment. Yeah, let's go to the states, and when we get to the states, are there things that the state governors are doing? Okay, is it enough? Are they capable of going ahead and leaving to the tenets and the letters of the law, or is it going to go the other way? We should not promise what we know we may not be able to do. And if the second day, the third day, a month, we realize that what we have promised is not, we are not capable of doing it, it's incumbent on you to call the parties to say, sorry, we are not capable of doing this. That is, if you know you are going to be able to come with clean hands. But if they see you, that you are living large, you are doing certain things that people say you should not be doing, then that means you are not ready to come to the organ table.
Okay. Mr. Fatake, I want to quickly ask a question. Right. So the presidency, particularly the special advisor to the president on information and strategy, Bayo Ononuga, is saying that Nigerian youths and Nigerians have a lot to learn from the president, from his life story, his ascent to power, and how he's been able to overcome all manners of challenges in his life, and now finds himself as the president of the country, saying we have a lot to learn from him. We should study his life and learn. Now, critics would argue that what is there to learn? Is it the strategy? Is like, really, what is there to learn? If I'm to ask you in the way that Bayo Ononuga has said it, when he said, okay, let's look at the president and look at his life, Nigerian youth should learn from him. What can we learn? What is that inspiring story of the president that Nigerian youth can learn from him? Is it someone we should aspire to be like?
Well, in everything we learn, we unlearn, we relearn. From the same individual, we have a lot to unlearn, and we have a lot to also relearn. We have to be very careful that we hold the balance. Yes, dogged fighter, one who believes that he will not go down even if heavens are going to fall. Yes. And staying his time and bidding his time, and then saying that it's his turn. That is good, and he's very ambitious. But are we seeing some of the things that he's doing by way of good character that we can say we can learn from? The jury is coming out that we are not seeing such grit, such determination. You know, we are not we are not seeing that. Is the president in a position to say to all of us, and we can all hear, that we are hungry and that he should cut his own coat according to cloth which he's asking us to do? I am not sure we are letting that. So that does not help in any way. Do we have a very bold president who, for instance, says that Nigeria is coming down and be properly is managed and is administrated? Yes, ready to say the truth. But is he ready to walk the truth that he says with everything surrounding him? Is he able to curtail his son? And is his son a member of the cabinet? Is he looking at the rule of law? Is he saying, for instance, that this ship that I'm navigating, that I think has a bottomless pit, let us all come back together and do a renegotiation, a real talk, and put the whole thing on the table. Those are the unlearning aspects. I've been so far, make that clear. And then we can relearn. We can relearn from the example of people who have walked that path before. Okay, at least not many came out smelling like rose. But we can say, hey, wait a minute. If there are certain things we used to do in the past and we are no more doing them, oh, come on, let's all sit down around the table and decide that this vehicle that we are in is not going to take us to any destination. Those are the kind of courage that I think we could learn from his ascendancy to power. Right there now, seeing the various challenges that we have, the various injustices that he came to. He came into office to fight, and how he can begin to unravel them, leading by example, leading by character, leading by competence, and leading by compassion.
Mr. Fatuke, speaking on what he came into office to find, right? So there are reports that the ICPC is probing the office of the Accountant General of the Federation, one person from that office and two CBN officials over the $3.4 billion IMF loan, which was meant, to be used to finance the budget and, of course, manage COVID-19. Now, we know COVID-19 was all the way in 2020. It's been about 4 years now. All of this happened under the administration of former President Muhammad Buhari, who claimed that he was fighting corruption. We might say it is a step in the right direction that the ICPC has called for a probe on this, because recently SERAP, that's the Social Economic Crisis and Accountability Project, took the president to court saying that he has to probe that missing $3.4 billion, saying they don't even know if it's missing, if it was diverted, or if it was unaccounted for. Do you see this present administration also fighting corruption even better than former President Muhammad Buhari claimed that he was?
Well, it will be a bit unfair to pass a judgment, even though we are seeing the direction. It's supposed to be a continuity. The president said, I'm going to continue where the former president stopped. But getting into the cockpit, I am not too sure that statement can still come from this current president. Did the Buhari government do certain things that were positive? Yes. Maybe at the end of the day, he was not hands-on, and then he had corruption swimming and driving him to greater decibel. If he had done what needed to be done, and billions upon billions were stolen under his nose, and this present government has not seen that, is this present government now worse on corruption? Wait a minute. Maybe, and maybe not. The This present government started by saying that it was going to take away, quote and unquote, the fuel subsidy that has drained Nigeria of trillions. Great way to look at it, I dare say. The implementation had a challenge. I would say the implementation had a challenge. That implementation will have a challenge for anybody, for any saint or sinner that eventually comes in, which needs to be properly balanced. And one of the first balance, in my view, will be, look, your own lifestyle. Your own lifestyle should have demonstrated the fact that you mean business. Yes, we are facing the pains, we are facing the challenge. We should not be looking at you and then you are living large, you and your household. It's unfortunate. And we should not be looking at you with your party, and then the members of the National Assembly will be buying SUV cars. We should not be looking at you at some elements of what we saw in the budget, both supplementary for 2023 and the 2024 budget. The things we saw there, it should not be. Yes, you have an idea of a lot of the things needs to be done. The aligning of the exchange rates also to take away arbitrage and a lot of the rots that have been caused. This present government decided that they were going to probe CBN. That probe is going on. But you know, discretion, as they say, is the better part of valor. I think we should be gradual. We should be gradualist. He cannot wake up and then be spending all his time and all his days probing this or probing that. What in accountancy we call sunk costs, yes, that can go on. It should go on. Should we spend our time on probing, bring this money, bring that money, and then we have all the terrorism that is going around? We have the hunger still in the land, whether you removed subsidy or no subsidy. The hunger has always been there. Is it going to tame the herdsmen and the farmers' crisis? Is it going to bring down the rate of inflation? It has to be a juggle. The only thing that has not happened, Ijeoma, I just tell you, whether it's going to be NLC that you see, whether it's going to be the medical guild that you are going to hear tomorrow, whether it's going to be the ASU that you are going to hear next tomorrow, whether it's going to be lost, we have trust has been lost, and we are not seeing the example that will help us to say, calm down, we are going to be able to get it properly done. That is one. Then secondly, we need a balance where different people, different races, different religions, and all that, whether we have voted for one another in elections or not, we need a proper balancing. I need to see more of people from certain regions in this government. However, I'm going to put a semicolon there. Maybe attempt has been made to do that, and that has been rejected. So if that has been rejected, no problem. I think we need a consensus. And I remember this president asking for all hands to be on, to be on deck. PDP, NPP, Labour Party, and perhaps they keep on still rejecting. In those rejections, it means one thing: we are still not one nation. And the earlier we come up and smell the coffee and tell ourselves and accept that honest truth and sit round the table to devise a means whereby, without necessarily spilling blood, we will be able to get a consensus, the better. So, NLC strike, Serap is doing this, and that is going on. That is just to say that we do not trust you. We did not trust the previous government. Well, any other government that comes, well, maybe we'll be given 1 month or 2 months, and then the decibel again will start. We do not trust. We do not trust. So if we do not trust, let's sit down together and judge. Let's sit down together and talk. But we should be seen to have taken the step that is born out of character, fairness, equity, and fair play.
Thank you so dearly, Mr. Akinfatike, for your session, for your analysis. It really has made all the difference. Thank you for joining me on the World News at 12 this afternoon. It's always a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you very much, Ijeoma. Please stay on top of it. Please keep on doing what you are doing.
Thank you so
you are
much.
Contributing your quota, and your station is also contributing their quota. We must not stop talking. But I know if you all take a decision that we are going to have a country, let it be on a round table, and we all agree to disagree, or disagree to agree.
Okay, then. Thank you so much, and have an amazing day, Mr. Fatike.
And you do have an amazing day too, Ijeoma.
You're still listening to the World News at 12 right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. On the foreign scene, Nikki Haley has defeated Donald Trump in the Republican primary in Washington, D.C. This is her first victory over the former president in the 2024 campaign to become the Republican presidential candidate. She lost in South Carolina, her home state, but she's the first woman to win a Republican primary in U.S. history. Trump, however, has a huge lead over Ms. Haley and is likely to face Joe Biden in the November election. Haley will receive all 19 Republican delegates who were up for grabs in Washington, D.C., giving her 43 delegates nationwide, well behind Trump's 247. Haley, who was a former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, won 62.9% of the vote to Trump's 33.2%. It is seen as a largely symbolic win, as the capital is a heavily Democrat-leaning jurisdiction with only about 23,000 registered Republicans in the city. And that's it on the World News at 12. Just before we wrap up, let's take a look at the top stories again. You heard that the NLC has insisted that only implementation of agreement will stop a nationwide strike. ICPC interrogates CBN officials and others over $3.4 billion COVID-19 loan. Falana urges federal government to review fuel subsidy removal and the Kia modernized plan to move firefighting equipment to Lagos. Under foreign scene, Nikki Haley beat Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. for first primary victory. And that is a wrap on the World News at 12. My name is Ijeoma Innocent. Please follow our social media handles at VOP903 FM for coverage of your live events and brand news mentioned on our news bulletins. Do send the mail to news@voiceofthepeople.ng. Good afternoon and thank you for listening. Do stay tuned. Up next is Matters with Ikami Jude.